Hi, and welcome to Life Addictions, The Recovery Show. My name is John Lausch. I'm a certified recovery specialist, and I will be your host for the next half hour. Today we have a very special guest, and we are going to talk about life addictions, whether it's drugs or alcohol, food or nicotine, sex, love, gambling, procrastination, and how these addictions, if you have one, you could possibly have several, and many times that is true. Our special guest today is Joe Bryan from the Beachcomber. Joe, introduce yourself and welcome.
Thank you. It's nice being on your show. My name is Joe Bryan. I'm the director of the Beachcomber. I've been with them since 1980. We're a small program, 16-bed treatment center in Delray Beach, Florida.
Joe, I just saw your video, and I've been in your facility. Amazing. It's right on the beach. It's right in Delray Beach, right on A1A. I mean, you can't really ask for a better location as far as serenity, the proximity to just the beautiful ocean. And you have 16 beds, and you have, what, 5 to 7 or 8 counselors?
5 counselors, 3 interns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that ratio is unheard of in the recovery community.
It is. And the location and the proximity is, for example, we're on the beach and we use the beach for meditation, yoga.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing facility. Joe, I've met over and over again at different conferences, lunch functions, and he's just out there. And your model that you use there, Joe, at Beachcomber, is the 12-step model, a holistic model. Tell us a little bit about the different modalities, because I saw a couple things that were interesting.
Well, one of our emphasis is to help patients reach a sense of recovery, sense of stabilization, sense of equilibrium, meaning mind, body, and spirit. We have a little gym on the property trying to get them to do some exercise. We're on the beach. We ask them to try to do some yoga. Then we also have to work on all the problems that one has through life, such as we work with trauma, we work with anger, grief, and we have many tools to do that. In fact, 3 of our therapists just got trained in a new type of treatment that, well, it's been around a while, but they're new for us. It's called EFT. Some people call it tapping. But
yeah.
We're doing that. We're also doing rapid resolution therapy. I know you had John Connolly on your show one time.
Yes.
Very great, wonderful method of helping people through trauma. And then we do a lot of one-on-ones. The objective of the Beachcomber is to try to help people without using the in-your-face confrontational therapy, but help them come along so they make the decisions on their own. Because if we make the decision for them, it's not the same thing. Yeah.
You know, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, because there really is more than one way to skin a cat. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, the 12-step model is a great model. It's been around for a long time. But having these different modalities, like you said, John Connolly's methods are amazing. He was on the show. You know, it's interesting you mentioned EFT. I just was with a person yesterday that did a session with me, and very powerful, I got to tell you.
It is very, yes. And when you use them all together, you have, one thing doesn't work with someone, maybe the next one will. That's the objective. Like the product that you have the same thing is, all of them together possibly can help bring that person to recovery. I mean, you can explain, you probably explain what your product does, but it's a same thing. You use everything you can in your toolbox.
You really do. You know what? And the phone, picking up the phone, you have books, you have the big book. You have so many books out there on recovery. Terry Korsky was on the show. He's got,
relapse prevention,
relapse prevention, so many books. And we have a product, the Recovery Pod. You know, I just had it in my car, and it's so amazing. You know, I brought a couple props just to show the people some of the different books. You know, you have the 12 Steps, 12 Tradition books. You have Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, you've got some books out there, the Alcoholism and Addiction Cure. You got the Back to Basic books, whatever books you have out there, and they're all really great books.
In fact, the books at the Beachcomber, I was surprised. We're one of the few places that actually give them the books when they come in, the 24-hour book, the 12 and 12, the big book, they go home with them. I was surprised most places don't do that. You have to buy them.
You have to buy them.
We get them first day they're there, they get them.
This is another product that we have, the Recovery Pod, and we talk about it on the show a lot. A lot of rehabs use it. It's funny, we have one for alcohol and we have one for drugs, but I just have this, and I was just listening to it in my car. It comes with headphones and everything, but you can just plug it into your car with the new technology with cars have today, and just listen to it through your car speakers. This is another tool you can have in your toolbox, and we'll give some information about that later, where to get it. But we sold this product to several rehabs in Delray across the nation, throughout Florida, Western Florida, and the breakdown that we found was, out of 10 of these that we sell, 7 of them are drugs and 3 are alcohol.
I mean, I heard the product. I think one of the things that I would see the product more for as a Beachcomber would go is, since we have such a high staff volume, would be the product that you take home with them.
Right.
While they're at the Beachcomber. Now, other places do it differently, which is okay, but our emphasis is personal contact. But then once, if they can't come in, obviously, that would be a product you would definitely, if you can't get into inpatient treatment, you definitely need to get something like that. That would be helpful. Yeah.
I would love to come in and maybe do an in-service talk with your people there. But tell us about the breakdown of the clients that you have. Like I said, what I found out was they order 7 drugs and 3 alcohol. It's more drugs these days than just alcohol, isn't it?
Well, it depends what treatment center you go to. Beachcomber is probably about 50% alcohol.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
so it's 50-50?
Yeah, we tend to get a little mature population. So, but I would say 50% alcohol, 50% other drugs.
Okay.
But even most of your Valium users are doing alcohol with the Valium or Oxycontin. If they can't get the Oxy, they'll do the alcohol. So it's always in there somewhere in the mix. Now, of course, you got some strict drug addicts that don't do alcohol. But yeah, on the most part.
Most part they do both.
That's correct, yeah.
And you encourage them, like most places, to, if they're doing a little bit of alcohol, they have to cut that out.
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah. It's just like in for an inch, in for a mile, something like that. Yeah, you can't just think that you can cut out the drugs and then I'll just do the alcohol. So it always leads you to a drug of choice.
Yeah.
And most people will tell you that. Well, I was just going to go out and have 1 drink or 2 drinks, then they end up doing cocaine.
Because that's a huge thing. I mean, for people that are coming into recovery for the first time, and their problem, say, is pills or drugs, and they drink occasionally, they're like, well, why do I have to stop drinking? It's not my drug of choice or anything.
Right. Well, I had a case where the woman only did cocaine 1 weekend out of the month, but she always would do it. And the problem with her is that she grew up poor, and she was trading, and she was afraid, and she had traded a couple times on cocaine and made some bad decisions, and that fear made her enough fear that she could never quit on her own. She came in, and it did help her for her cocaine addiction. But she was only doing it 1 week in a month.
Yeah. So she was a casual user, but still addicted just the same.
And the fear of losing her income or losing a customer was so important that she went ahead and made some changes in her life. Yeah. But yeah, your vast majority of addicts are much more using than that.
Tell us a little bit more about the Beachcomber, because it's an amazing place. You get people in from all 50 states, I guess.
Well, we only take 16, so we tend to have a waiting list, but not always. What's nice about the Beachcomber is that there's 8 cottages, 2 people per cottage. We have a cook that does wonderful food there. We have a cleaning person. We do yoga 7 days a week. We have acupuncture twice a week. We have a gym on the property. We have the beach for meditation. And as I said, we're doing the rapid resolution. We're doing the EFT. We're also doing light and sound therapy.
Yeah, I saw that on your website.
So, and then we have 5 groups a day, 7 days a week. At most programs on the Sunday or Saturday, I don't know if you're familiar with it, they don't do as much. We have 2 therapists on both days, so there are 5 groups both days. Plus a family component on, we have 2 family groups during the week.
So your weekends, your Saturdays and Sundays there is just like a regular work day?
Just like a regular day, yeah.
I
So
see.
it's 28 days of full treatment, as opposed to some places may do Monday through Friday and weekends are off, so somewhat, yeah.
Joe Bryan and the Beachcomber has been around South Florida for, tell us how many years, 30 years?
Well, the Beachcomber opened up in 1976. It was started by my father, and I came down in 1980 and have been with them ever since. So it's been under the same ownership. It's the oldest residential program in Florida, and I should say oldest continuous residential program.
Tell us a little bit about the background. You say your father started it. What was the driving force and all that back in? Because back in the 70s,
Right.
it was a very different time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I lived on a treatment center when I was a little kid too, because that's where my father worked. But my father was on Skid Row, and couldn't. What had finally happened? He broke into someone's house, hid in their closet. He was drinking, of course, having all kinds of,
Sounds like Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. So he got arrested. He got thrown in jail, and that was more or less the start of his recovery process. And he ended up going to AA. Almost lived in the clubhouse, and eventually started helping alcoholics. And then eventually, back those days, you got a job. He had a degree, but it was in philosophy, not in addiction. And worked in a treatment center. Then, before he knew it, he was working at Chit Chat, which is Cairn Foundation.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania in the '60s, and then came to Florida. And he always wanted to run a treatment center because he was kind of an independent person, didn't like to being told how to help patients, and always wanted to run one. So eventually, he found the Beachcomber, which was small, on the beach, and he knew he could run it the way he thought it should be run. And if he kept it small, it wouldn't get too out of control. Because, the bottom line is this: if you put 16 alcoholic drug addicts in one area, you're putting a lot of problem cases. They have a lot of issues. So, you imagine you put 100 of them in one area. That's a lot of problems.
Yeah, that is a lot. And a lot of recovery centers want to expand and get bigger and bigger. But you've always stayed 16 beds. And, it's funny, the history that you're talking about, a lot of people in this field have come from some kind of recovery. Very few people are not in recovery or something propelled them. We always have guests on that are at the top of the in their field, and they always tell us a story either of themselves or a brother or a mother or a parent like that, and that's the most powerful thing that we hear. But you were mentioning Chit Chat. I'm very familiar with Reading and Father Bill there, and that's a great place to. So you must have had a wonderful education.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And like I said, I lived on the property back then. At Chit Chat, you lived on the property. All the therapists did. So I had a lot of experience at that time, and beautiful location as well. In the mountains. It's gotten a lot bigger since then. It was a small program, more like 30 patients, I think, at that time. I don't know what it is now. But again, he took what he had learned from Chit Chat, Eagleville. He even worked at CARP, what he learned at CARP, and we installed it in the Beachcomber.
CARP's a tough place to work. I've got some friends that were therapists there, and
good training ground.
Good training ground, right? Right. That's really the front line.
Right. It is.
It's an amazing place. So in our program, we talk about different addictions: drugs, alcohol, sex and love, food, nicotine, procrastination, criminal addiction, spending, gambling, and even internet and gaming. Joe, in your experience, somebody comes in for drugs or alcohol, and those are normally a good combination. If you have one, you probably got the other.
Right.
Tell us about some of these other addictions that you've seen that comes to the surface, or that is in their history. Because a lot of times I found out that when you put the drug and alcohol down, that some of these other addictions, take over, whether it's sex or love. Or
compulsions. It's compulsions. Out of control compulsions. They do come up, and it's the same type of method. You got to deal with it one day at a time. You got to deal with what is the cause and effect. For example, let's say food addiction. What is going on? A lot of times it's low self-esteem. Could be trauma. So you got to find out what is causing these aberrations or these issues of them going in their compulsive situation. Whether it's sex addiction, what is causing that? A lot of times it may be some of the similar things. Sex addictions can be related to trauma, can be related to incest. We find a lot of patients that have eating disorder, anorexia. Not all. Some are psychiatric, some are childhood problems. And I'm sure you've heard that. You've heard enough stories. You heard that whether it was incest or rape or some type of thing like that. And for down the road, it's control issues. It becomes a control issue. And one of the things that people can control the intake of food. That's kind of keep it simple. I kind of break it down in short. But there's more to it, but that's the bottom line, control.
It is, right? And a lot of times it's very interchangeable. When you put one down, another one rears its ugly head. So you really have to keep it in the forefront. Those the same tools you'll use for drugs and alcohol are very similar to the same tools you might use in...
They are, but the problem is I don't believe, for example, if someone has a major eating disorder, they may not fit well in a addiction setting with alcoholic and drug addicts, because even though they may have the same problems of alcohol, drugs, and food, they may not mix because it's a lot harder to deal with the food because addicts, you have a food out there. You're not doing a food plan like, let's say, a specialty program.
Right.
Sex addiction, you may need to be in a all-women's program, all-male program. So when you get into some of these areas, they may not mix with the regular. That's why we only do alcohol and drug addiction. We do get people with food addiction. We do get some gambling. But if it's getting into anorexia, bulimia, you have to be very cautious of what you're doing in that area, for example. Yeah.
Right. That's a very good point, because there's special rehabs just for gambling, or just for sex and love, or just for food addiction, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and the problem is, you put a gambler in with 10 alcoholics, he's going to say, I'm not this bad. I don't have the same problems I do, and so he doesn't relate, and that's important.
Right.
Being able to relate to the rest of the population. Yeah.
If you could, we ask this question of just about every guest that comes. How do you get a person to stop using and abusing drugs or alcohol?
Well, it's simple. My father always said, you got to give them hope. If they don't have hope of ever being able to get into recovery, they'll never stop. So that's, no matter who it is, they have to have hope.
Yeah.
If they don't have hope, they're not going to stop. And then they have to have a plan. So first is hope, then the plan. If they don't get the hope, they'll no one will listen to you.
Yeah.
That's keeping it simple.
Right. We want to give out the contact information. We have some great viewers that watch. Joe, let them know where they can find the Beachcomber, whether it's a phone number, a website, if they have a family member, a coworker, maybe themselves. Give us some contact information.
Well, the best way is take a look at our website, which you said you've seen. It has we're getting a lot of videos on there. It's thebeachcomber.cc, and the Beachcomber is THEBEACHCOMBER. Some people forget the B in Beachcomber. .cc. And if you want to call us at the Beachcomber, we're in Delray. It's 561-734-1818. We're there 24 hours, 7 days a week. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, viewers, it's a great place. If you have a family member, if you know somebody, a coworker, addiction is a very serious thing. It's not uncommon for somebody to be in addiction 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
No, we get 60-year-olds in treatment. Had an opera singer in who actually didn't start doing drugs until he came in at 63. He didn't start doing drugs until he was 59.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't change the... you never know when.
But you can, nip it in the bud. Give your family members, your coworkers, your friends, tell them about the Beachcomber. You have the phone number, you have the website. It's an amazing place, and you can't really find a better place as far as location, and the ratio to therapist per client is just, I've never heard one that's so low.
Well, thank you.
It really is amazing. And Life Addictions, the recovery program, has the recovery pod, and that contact number is 717-991-4755. And again, it's probably one of the most, it's not reading, it's just listening. It comes with headphones, a charger, and the first 3 tracks that we talk about, like you say, hope, is the reassurance phase. We reassure the listener. Now, no matter how bad things have gotten, other people have gotten better, and so can you. So that reassurance phase, the hope that Joe was talking about, is in the recovery pod, and we also talk about underlying causes, and really it's a great product. And you can reach us at lifeaddictions.com. Joe, we've got a couple more minutes left. Let's talk some more about the general addiction and recovery, the different trends South Florida has seen. These drug mills. I see on the news every week some doctor, whether he's a dentist or not, getting busted for giving out prescriptions, and how people come from different states and just, the pill, whether it's Oxycontin or any other ones, are just, what is your view on that, and how do you see the transition from
Well, obviously the doctors get in because of the money. I mean, the money is too easy, and why are patients? I said this was strange. Why is Florida, South Florida, seem to be the place where I heard Kentucky comes down here and with 4 people, and somehow we're able to go to 4 different clinics or whatever, 5 different clinics. South Florida seems to get a lot of that for some reason, just like California and New York, I guess. 3 areas that seem to get the first of everything that spreads.
Right.
What main differences in why South Florida it seems to be a recovery capital is, I guess, the weather. And we got into treatment long ago, and people get sober, and the open treatment centers is another reason why this area seemed to get a lot of treatments. And so you have a lot of people in recovery, but then you have a lot of people who have addiction problems as well.
Yeah, because there's a good recovery rate, but there's also a heavy relapse rate as well.
Yeah, there is, and if you have that, you're going to have some customers. But it does seem like a lot of out-of-state people are coming in to buy the pills. The pill mills. I know there's been a lot of rest in that, and it seems like that comes and goes. Before that there was. There's always something that hits the horizon, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I just read an article recently about how kids that are, on these ADHD or what is it, ADD pills?
Yeah,
or,
ADD, right.
Which is that they are more susceptible to being addicts when they grow up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I guess it's like anything. Some people never took pills.
Yeah.
They probably less likely to get addicted as opposed to someone who did take pills, for whatever reasoning. Just like if someone saw alcohol in their household a lot early age, you may see alcohol in their life a lot. It doesn't mean the one who never saw alcohol doesn't have that, but just less likely.
Right.
It's environmental.
It's very environmental, isn't it?
It does. It's not the only thing. I believe hereditary is important. I'm sure you've probably seen that it's the same thing in hereditary. Why do families all become alcoholics?
Yeah, and it's a combination. I mean, if you're put in an environment, if you have a little bit of a disposition to in your family, it's going to really explode. We
always say that it doesn't matter how you got to where you are, what are you going to do about it when you are there. For example, if you're alcoholic, how you got there is not as important as getting some help.
Yeah. Joe, you do a great job for the recovery addicts. The Beachcomber is an amazing place. Tell us about what you got going on in the future with the Beachcomber and everything.
Well, we've had a lot of change the last couple of years. My father always said, if it works, don't fix it. So we're hoping to keep it at the 16 and let everyone else get huge. And we're trying to do what we can. And it seems like we do quite a lot of satisfaction with all of our customers. So I can't see a change in it, but we are trying to change. We are accepting new things coming down, which is good. In the old days, people didn't, they wouldn't change their model whatsoever. Now we're accepting more. I noticed that in the last 5 years, we've done a lot of changes, which we hadn't in the first 25 years.
And you really have to. I mean, everything is changing. I mean, the people, the young folks are changing. The new generation, everything is new. I mean, you really have to change in many, many ways.
Well, some of the new things do work, and of course, like our father said, I walked uphill through the snow both ways. That's new models do help, and some don't. But you find which ones works, and you keep them. And so we're accepting new things that are going through. But the main emphasis is the same thing: is alcoholics and drug addicts get well through contact, through keeping the drugs and alcohol away from them, through keeping chaos away from them. You got to it's just like school. If you make the atmosphere quiet enough and calm enough for them to learn, they can make changes. But if it's not going to happen.
Joe Bryan from the Beachcomber, thank you so much. You've been a great guest, Joe.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And this is Life Addictions, the Recovery Show. Tune in again.